Over the past few decades, humans have put a really big pressure on the environment, leading to a growing impetus for the non-consumptive use of our planet's resources. As such, conducting ecotourism operations to view wildlife in their natural environment has become increasingly popular. Shark provisioning ecotourism is part of this trend and a booming industry that is growing globally. What happens is that divers come into the water wanting to see sharks that are normally elusive and relatively rare, and operators are using bait such as fish pots or chumming to bring the sharks in so that they can be easily viewed. The controversy over shark provisioning is that although it has both conservation and economic benefits, critics claim that firstly, this practice could pose a threat to the safety of baiters and water users, where sharks learn to associate people with food providers. Another concern is that feeding sharks will change their long-term behavior, and this could lead to ecological consequences. However, based on current knowledge, these concerns appear to be largely unfounded with minimal supporting evidence. With regard to the possible danger to humans, there are no clear findings available demonstrating such correlations. On the contrary, a study on great white sharks in South Africa found that despite its reputation as a man-eater, specific conditioning associated with provisioning did not increase the occurrence of shark attacks on nearby water users. Furthermore, the remoteness of tour sites reduces the risk of encounters between sharks and humans. For example, shark tour operations in Hawaii are carried out more than 4 kilometers offshore, away from human activity. As to concerns on ecological effects caused by shark feeding, there has been a surge of studies that have tried to understand the question about how this practice impacts the behaviors of sharks. However, they have occurred over relatively small timescales and include methods such as observational techniques, which are prone to bias and hence may not be accurate representations of the actual behaviors of sharks in the wild. A recent study has advanced the debate by using satellite telemetry to explicitly look at the impacts of shark diving on the long-range movements of tiger sharks. This technique involves tagging the sharks with satellite transmitters so that their activity and movement patterns can easily be monitored over a prolonged period of time. In Florida, shark diving using bait is illegal, and in the Bahamas it is highly practiced. Researchers went to these two spots, satellite tagged a bunch of tiger sharks in each location, and looked to see how they moved. They expected that at the Bahamas site where the sharks were being fed, those sharks would show more restricted movement and an activity space that was centered around the area. In comparison, they thought that the sharks tagged in Florida would exhibit relatively larger dispersal and less site-attached movements. What the researchers found was surprising and not what they expected. The sharks from both sides moved significantly further than anticipated, making long-distance migration patterns following the Gulf Stream to areas of the Atlantic which have high productivity, possibly for food. More importantly, this provides strong evidence that shark provisioning has little impact on the behavior of these animals. To date, shark provisioning appears to have no major impacts on human safety and also does not affect the shark's long-term movements and swimming behaviors. As such, the bottom line is that rather than rushing to make conclusions based on fear, we should put in the effort to do the science and make the appropriate policies based on facts and data. For a more in-depth discussion as to why this practice should be regulated rather than banned, stay tuned for the upcoming oral defense.